I am here with James Eager. James, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man. Awesome to be here.
So the reason I wanted to have you on is because I know you've done lots of gigs and you've actually led bands and you've hired a number of singers, yes?
Yeah, I'm talking probably in the hundreds now, so it's fair to
Hundreds
say
of singers.
I would imagine. Actually, maybe not quite that many, but a lot. I started in this game. I realised just before this podcast, it's going to be like 20 years this year that I've been band leading and booking singers, and so it's fair to say that I've seen quite a bit over that time, from the humble beginnings of where we started through to some of the crazy work that we did over the last 10 years. So yeah, I could put some perspective on it, shall we say.
So if we're talking hundreds of singers, some singers have lasted longer than others.
Yeah, some singers have lasted one gig. Some of them have lasted nearly probably 15 to 20 years. And so there's definitely some themes we can pull out.
All right, so let's start with the people that lasted one gig. What are some of the quickest ways to get fired from a gig?
John, can we hold that question for a second?
Sure.
I want to turn this round on you, and I want to interview you very, very, very briefly. And,
this was not in the podcast notes, but go ahead.
Are you used to someone else taking control on your podcast?
No, but let's see where it goes. Let's see where this goes.
Okay, let's see how much of a control freak you are. Right. You are, obviously, you run The Intelligent Vocalist, and you are a very fine singer, but I happen to know that you started off behind the drums playing in top 40 cover bands, didn't you? So you have made that journey from being behind a load of, I don't know, armor, having cymbals and drums all around you from the back of the stage all the way.
Yeah, terrible load in is what I moved from.
Yeah. And although I haven't heard you play the drums, I imagine you're pretty damn good at it. Because you talk the talk and in a very good way. And so I want to know, from your difference of having made that transition, what do you think is the difference between being a muso or a musician on stage and being a singer? I'd love to know your perspective on that. What's the change? What happened?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I'm going to defend singers here a little bit because being behind the drums, I had more of the musician's perspective, if we're going to separate singers from musicians, just for shorthand, playing a musical instrument. And when singers would complain about certain things, whether they couldn't hear themselves properly or just the setup, they don't have enough space to perform. When I moved to the front of the stage, I realized, wow, if I'm having trouble hearing the mix as a drummer, I could still find something to hang on to. But as a singer, it's really critical because if I overplay the drums, I'm just a little too loud. If I oversing, I can blow my voice out, number one. And number two, the audience, the typical listener, tends to listen voice down. They will listen to the singer first and foremost, and then I think they kind of lock into the drums and even the bass, and the rest kind of fills out the listening experience for them. So you really have a bit more pressure, and when I would make a mistake on the drums, you kind of get a snicker from the other players. But you make a mistake as a singer, the whole audience knows it. So there's a bit more added pressure. Now, having said that, there are certainly things that singers can do that would make them easier for band leaders to want to hire them in a certain level of professionalism. So I'll throw it back at you. What are some of the main issues that you run into with singers?
Well, let's start right at the beginning and just talk about the basic stuff. You've got to know the songs. I mean, that is first and foremost. And you've got to have, certainly in the UK, and I've seen some American set lists, there's always like this stock set of material that's going around at any one given moment of time. And I'm reasonably certain that I could walk into an American wedding and be absolutely fine for about 80% of it.
You're going to play Celebration? You may play Mustang Sally?
Yeah, I may play Valerie. Hands on it goes. But it's knowing that material to be starting off with, and it's being really confident of what that material is. And the further you get down the road of being a pro singer, the more and more material repertoire, that's the word I'm going for, that you should have, basically. And when you're first starting out, this is obviously a difficult thing to do. I mean, learning 30, 40 songs or whatever is hard. But if I think back to my time as a bass player in my early 20s, I was learning new sets all of the time. But fast forward 15 years, there's probably only, if I do a new gig with a new band, probably 5 or 6 songs that I may have to learn because the rest of it's all stock. So it's about putting that groundwork in the beginning so you have that repertoire in place. And it's also then, if you don't, or you don't have time to learn something, I think it's all about being transparent with the band leader and saying, like, I can do this gig, but I don't have time to do this, this, and this. And the band leader knows what he's hiring. There's nothing worse than turning up or more annoying from a band leader's perspective, of coming on a gig and the singer going, oh, I just didn't bother learning that one. I didn't have time, that kind of thing. Because you can bet your bottom dollar that other musicians in the band have put the hours into learning it. And you end up with this very uncomfortable situation where you've had one guy who might have shedded, 5 songs to learn the gig, and then it gets pulled because the singer doesn't know the song. That's incredibly frustrating. And I've always tried to be very respectful of people's time in preparation for gigs, that kind of thing. So that we're not wasting time by getting people to learn stuff that they don't need to play. So it's a case of be transparent right from word go. If you're going to struggle to do something, let the band leader know. Also, when you learn the songs, this goes without saying, learn them properly. Learn them from beginning to end as stylistically accurately as you can. And that is normally singing them as close to the original record as you can. Does that make sense, John, what I'm saying?
Yeah. And when you well, first of all, 2 questions out of that. What do you think of singers using a lyric sheet in a music stand over in the corner? Are no music stands for you? I don't particularly like music stands as such, but over the last 7 or 8 years, iPads have become increasingly more popular, and I'm cool with that. But I think music stands can work, and I think iPads can work as well. But it's down to how the singer uses them. I always remember one singer turning up to the gig, having done exactly what I just said not to do there, of like turning up and saying, oh, I don't know this, this, and this, and then having the music stand in the middle of her face. And it's like the audience actually want to see their face and the singer's face to begin with, but also it's how you use that device. If it's just to glance at a few lyrics every now and again, that's absolutely fine. But if it's going to start dominating your performance, there's an issue there, because you as the singer is there to perform to the crowd, basically. And you're not giving the crowd your full attention if you don't know the songs properly to begin with. Or absolutely. Equally, there's one singer a wonderful singer that I worked with for nearly 20 years, and she is amazing at singing songs she doesn't know that well, because she is innately musical and do you call it blagging in America? I don't know if you call it that, but when you're making it up as you go along. But she has that skill and that confidence to do that and pull lyrics out on the spot if she's not 100% sure, because she's that experienced at doing it. But if you don't have those chops under your belt to do that, don't blag that stuff on stage. It won't work. I think it's just being really honest about your skill set, being really honest to the people who are hiring you, respecting the other musicians, and putting the work in. Sometimes I'll just as a blanket statement, singers don't always tend to come from the same background of woodshedding that musicians do. When you're learning an instrument, you really kind of get into that habit of really having to spend a lot of time with this instrument because it wasn't something you were born with. And singers, to varying degrees, can have more of a natural ability, so the woodshedding doesn't always come into play. But picking up on something else you said, stylistically as close as possible. Do you want singers to try and sound exactly like the singer in terms of their tone color, or is it maybe picking up more stylistic nuances because voices are all different?
I think all of this is all about having a sense of context. I expect a singer to have the basics down, like to be able to sing in time, to sing in tune, have the right range to sing the songs, etc., like that. And I expect them to then be able to sing the song accurately as the original record. However, if you've suddenly massively got into Christina Aguilera, for instance, you don't want to be then bringing all of your... Do you guys call them riffs? I always find that quite a bizarre expression.
Yeah. We tend to call them riffs. What do you call them?
I can't broadcast what I call it live on air, but
so I'm saying. So I'm guessing it's not melisma or runs. Yes.
No. Yeah, no. Right. No, but let's be polite and call it the improvisation that will go on the end of a phrase or a line, or not holding. I think one of the more politer words I sometimes call it is warbling. But if you're going to go and sing a song, I don't know, Lady Marmalade's coming to mind. I don't know why, but if you're going to sing that, because Christina Aguilera did a version of that, didn't she? That's why. Yeah, and it's like, if you're on a gig and you're playing the original, the Bell version of that, you don't want all that Christina Aguilera stuff over the top, because that's what she does incredibly well. And you don't want that treatment to a whole set as well. However, this does come with a big caveat, is if you're a specialist singer doing a particular genre of music, like with Metropolis, the band that I ran for many years, and there would be sometimes where we'd be booking 5 singers, and we would book a particular guy to come and do the James Brown thing, and he wasn't much use for much else, but he'd sing James Brown incredibly well and do the splits on stage, which the audience loved.
That's no small feat.
No, it's not. But yeah, so it's like if you're doing a specialist thing that you're being hired for, by all means doing that. But if you're doing a general set where you're covering a bunch of different genres and styles of that, I would say you're much safest to try and keep it straight down the line, and just have a sense of context. If you are lucky enough to have be able to do all that crazy stuff that, I don't know, Alicia Keys does or something along those lines, be able to do that, and there is the right moment to do it, and you can blow everybody's mind by doing that, because musicians, if they're on a gig and there's this particularly inspiring moment and someone really goes for it, and it can be the most wonderful thing in the world. So if it's the right moment to do it, by all means do it, but have that context. That's the important thing.
Yeah, it's about being musical. It reminds me back in my gigging days, and players, we have the Musicians Institute, and in LA, the Guitar Institute of Technology, GIT, and I don't know if it's still the case, but there was a bad rap around those players to hire them for a gig, because they're coming out of years of just running all this high level technical stuff, and then they get on the gig and they want to use it, and they'd end up overplaying. And so, it's just about being musical within the context. And speaking of being musical, I wanted to bring up often a sore spot with the players in the band, singers and percussion.
Oh my God! Unless you have trained to play a tambourine in time, don't go near it.
Don't touch it.
Just don't. If you can do it, by all means, but talk to the rest of the band and say, do you mind if I do a bit of this? And always remember, with a tambourine or whatever it might be, less is always more. So that is my thing. But there's one more thing that I've just thought of, is another really important thing for singers to know is backing vocals, particularly if they're doing top 40 work, that kind of thing. There's nothing more frustrating than if you've booked 3 or 4 singers to be on a gig and singers don't know the core backing vocals to certain songs and they don't sing it. That is definitely part of the job. Even if you're not singing the lead, it's to know what else is going on. So yeah.
And some singers really have that gift to be able to find their part on the spot.
Oh, I'm always in awe of those singers who can harmonize just in the moment, that kind of thing. I think it's a massive, massive skill. So if you can get your harmony singing down, that it's a really, really, really important. But drawing back on a point you just said about the difference between singers, musicians, and talking about the voice, is the singers that I've always enjoyed working with the most are singers who treat their voice like an instrument. And so they will take the same language as a musician, and they will be just as simple as stuff going, guys, I know, I don't know, I'm going to pull it out, I don't know, pick any song, Blame It on the Boogie, for instance. It's in E flat, okay? Could we do it in D today, because I'm struggling? Could we take it down a half step? That kind of thing. If you can talk their language, then you're 50% ahead straight away. There's nothing, I'm going to say, it's a very frustrating thing as a musician when a singer comes up, and this is more in situations where people are sitting in, can I sing Summertime? That kind of thing. Well, what key do you do it in? I don't know. It's have that basic working knowledge of how to communicate. I don't know how much you talk about this sort of thing on your podcast, but if you treat your voice as if it was an instrument, as if you were playing the trumpet and the trombone or whatever, or any instrument for that matter, but you go through the same set of learning, then it will massively help you be employable. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
And being having been a drummer and you as a bass player, one of the things I really appreciate about great singers is time and phrasing. That where they're masters of it, where they have this internal clock that's going, and then they know how much they can push and pull the phrasing, and it just is so remarkable when a singer can do this well. And I would imagine that's one of your favorite traits of singers as well.
Oh yeah, if you've got a singer who can phrase incredibly well, I think you've got to be careful it doesn't turn into kind of a cliche back phrasing. Do you use back phrasing? Lounge singer time. No. I mean, really subtle phrasing that just gives just enough of a change within the performance to on a almost subconscious level, keep the listener engaged. Yeah, I completely agree. There have been some phenomenal singers that we've worked with over the years who have got that stuff down, and they are just absolutely masterful to watch or listen to in action. I mean, then I've actually just talking about watching, that brings us on to a whole nother subject, doesn't it? You okay with me taking this podcast off different places, John?
Go. Run with it.
Run with it. Okay. So as a musician in the band, you are the ones which are out the front, and I believe there is a huge responsibility there. But you have this engine room behind you that you've got to communicate with. A good singer is up there communicating and looking back round at the band, saying, can we go round another chorus at the end? That kind of thing. Really, really taking control. That kind of thing. I guess the ultimate master of this is, we mentioned James Brown earlier. Watch that man in action if you want to see someone in control of a band. That is the thing. But musicians want to be led, and it's much, much easier if you can lead front the back. I mean, I've done I've led from the back many times, and it can be tricky when you've got a singer which is taken out his in-ear monitors or something, and you can't communicate with them. But if that communication is coming from the front, that kind of thing, it's often so easy to know what's going on. Eye contact is absolutely key with the rest of the band. Just learning the basic hand signals, hand gestures to control a band, and gaining the confidence to do that is key.
Yeah, I mean, just something as simple as holding a fermata at the end of a song, and the singer's holding the note, and then just stops with no visual cue to the band that it's ending right here, and that kind of kills that moment. The band ends on decreasing energy rather than everybody just nailing that the very final end of the song.
It's funny looking at this podcast here, because John and I are both instinctively doing a lot of hand movements, how to end a song here, which is never going to make a great podcast in here. But if you want to imagine our hands going up in the air and the elbow coming down to end the song, that is exactly what we're both doing here.
Yeah, you have to remember you're up there with musicians. And I've often said, you have to get your musical skills to the point where your focus is no longer internal and on the technical, but everything is external. It's on the audience. It's on the other musicians. It's on the sound of the song as a whole. And when singers truly become another musician, truly a musician on stage, great moments can happen.
I would completely agree with you. But let's be frank, 50% of what you get booked for is what happens on stage, and the other 50% is what happens off stage too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be easy to get along with. If you're not a good hang, if they can't sit and you're getting your rather poor band dinner, here you said it's lasagna there. Here it's always sandwiches, bandwiches. But
bandwiches.
If you're not a good hang, you're probably not going to be invited back.
Yeah, and I have a few stories along those lines of very fine, good singers in this over here that haven't lasted the distance, or have lasted one gig, shall we say, because they were difficult to hang out with. And also, bear in mind, if you start doing any overseas work when you're traveling together and you might have 3 or 4 days away, that's a critical time when you've got to be easygoing and cool to hang out with, because stuff goes wrong when you're overseas. You might get a dodgy hotel room, or I don't know, the plane might be delayed, and if there's a diva type thing that starts happening, or there's one famous story in our band. I wasn't actually on it, but it was reported back. My son was being born at the time, and we had to book a band right at the last moment. Well, my business partner did, and to take six guys out to play on a luxury boat in the Mediterranean, or yacht, that kind of stuff. But we had to carry gear. Some of it they couldn't get from rental companies, and so the guys were doing all these difficult transfers from land to sea, all the wrong places. So they were so tired. Yet there was a singer there who wasn't helping with any of the equipment. She had said, I know all of these songs, for instance, and actually when it came to it on the gig, she didn't have the context of how a function worked. She was more of a jazz singer, that kind of thing, and didn't have that experience, and then was just generally quite obnoxious, apparently. And it was just a very, very bad vibe, and it's gone down in the annals of our band history, shall we say, of that. I mean, and that's another thing, is like, even we have a lot of different musicians come into Metropolis, and I work with a lot of other bands too, as well, where there are different people coming in and out. But there's always like a core band vibe, if you know what I mean, because of the people they book, even if lots of different people are in and out. And it's about having a sense of what that vibe is, not going in and rocking the boat, because the chances are that a bunch of these people know each other pretty well already, and people book people who they want to hang out with, shall we say. and it's go in and figure out what's going on there. Don't say anything. And this, I promise you, this has happened where a singer's come in and picked an argument with someone they've only just met, that kind of stuff. And it's not just. I can't repeat the email I got from a drummer afterwards when that happened. Please don't book that person before. You can enter some expletives there. But it does happen. So be respectful of the vibes that are being created, and the vibe that in our band that in Metropolis has been there nearly 20 years now. It's been there a long time, and it's all generally about just being cool to hang out with and easygoing, that kind of stuff. So that is just really important stuff.
Well said. So tell people where they can find you, because you also have one of the leading online bass guitar schools.
Yeah, this is my current venture. I run a website called ebassguitar.com, which is an online learning platform for beginner to intermediate bass guitar players. So I teach them everything, all the fun games that I've played over the last 20 years. The bands that I've been talking about there, you can check out band Metropolis. There's all the usual stuff on there if you want to see what we've done. It's gone everything from little tiny weddings right in the beginning to 15-piece bands and international travel and all that kind of stuff. So there's a fair bit of experience had there.
Fantastic. James, thank you so much for joining us.
Been a pleasure, man.